Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're zeroing in on something, well, deceptively simple. A town square. Specifically, we're taking a deep dive into the history and evolution of the one in Warren, Arkansas.
Right.
Our sources for this journey are a really rich collection: historical profiles, architectural records, local encyclopedias. Gives us a pretty detailed picture.
Yeah, and our goal isn't just, to describe a place. We want to understand how this central hub has mirrored Warren's journey.
Its economic shifts.
Exactly. Its growth and the changing patterns of its community life, over the decades.
It's like reading the story of a town etched right into its heart.
That's a good way to put it. Think of it that way.
Yeah, because when you stop and think about it, a town square is far more than just open space and some buildings.
Oh, absolutely. It's a living record of a community story.
So let's jump right in. How can a single town square tell us so much about a community's past and present? Okay, let's unpack this, starting with how Warren itself came to be.
Okay. Well, Warren's beginnings as the Bradley County seat, they date back to the early 1840s.
Right.
The location was selected by commissioners, and then in 1841, two local residents, John H. Marks and John Splon, they made a pretty significant contribution.
Donating land, was it?
Yeah, donating land 40 acres, to be precise, for the actual town site.
Okay.
So by 1842, it was officially designated the county seat, which really solidified its importance for the region, and then it was formally incorporated as a town in 1851.
And the town's name itself. That has an interesting layer to it, doesn't it? Wasn't always straightforward.
That's right. Yeah, for a long time, the origin of the name was debated.
Right.
The discovery in 2015, inside a time capsule, actually.
Yeah.
It brought greater clarity. The current understanding is that Warren was named in honor of Warren Bradley, who is an enslaved man owned by Hugh Bradley.
Huh. That detail offers a powerful, maybe sobering insight into the social realities back then.
It really does, a reflection of the time.
So, okay, picture the scene. Brand new county seat, mid-1800s South. What's the typical layout?
Well, it followed a very common pattern in the southern states. The initial design of Warren centered on a public square.
Right, for the courthouse.
Exactly. This wasn't just any open space. It was specifically set aside for the courthouse. That immediately established the square as the focal point for civic life, a natural gathering place.
So what about the buildings? What would that square have looked like in those very early days?
Well, the very first courthouse, built in 1842, was basic, really temporary, probably logs or simple timber framing.
Okay.
It served its purpose until about 1858. And the square around it, pretty modest, more like a clearing than the defined space we see today.
Just a few buildings.
Yeah, just a handful of simple wood frame buildings, general stores, maybe a few professional offices, small community finding its feet.
Sounds very different. And then came a period that really tested the young town. Reconstruction.
Yes, the Reconstruction era after the Civil War was particularly tough for Warren, really challenging.
How bad did it get?
Well, historical records indicate that at one point only a single store remained open, just one.
Wow.
And its business was mostly catering to the occupying federal troops stationed there. Commercial activity just ground to a halt, really reflecting the broader economic hardship.
But then a big change arrived, something that altered Warren's path.
Absolutely. The railroad. The arrival of the railroad in 1880 was transformative, a huge event.
So.
Warren became the western terminus of the Little Rock, Mississippi River and Texas Railroad. This connection, finally linking Warren to broader networks, gave crucial access to the previously untapped timber market, and it was valuable.
So that single piece of infrastructure really lit an economic fire.
It certainly did. The 1880s saw this rapid expansion of the lumber industry nearby, a significant jump in the number of sawmills around Warren.
Which means more people, more business.
Exactly. A surge in population, people coming for work, and this growth fueled a boom in commercial activity, all centered around the town square.
So those early, simpler wooden buildings, they started to disappear.
Precisely. By the 1890s, most of those initial wood frame structures were replaced by more substantial, enduring brick commercial blocks.
So that's when the look really started changing.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the oldest surviving buildings we see today mostly date back to this late 19th century growth spurt.
Not earlier.
Suggests earlier structures maybe burned down, deteriorated, or were just replaced to reflect the town's growing prosperity. That shift to brick, it signals confidence, investment.
And the layout of the square we'd recognize today. When did that really cement itself?
Well, the fundamental layout, the footprint, was largely established by this late 19th century period. Courthouse, still central, of course,
Right.
occupying its block. Bordered by Main Street to the west, Myrtle Street to the east, Cedar Street south.
And the north.
Immediately north, you had the critical railroad tracks and the area around Elm and First Streets. Very important connection.
And even the street names around the square, they tell stories too, right?
They do indeed. The streets formed a grid, and as the town grew, many got named after local landmarks.
Like Church Street.
Exactly. Church Street, just south of Cedar, gets its name from the churches nearby. The Methodist west of Main, the Baptist further south on Main, and there used to be a Presbyterian on Church Street itself.
Makes sense.
Even the intersection of Main and Church became a key crossroads. Later on, early 20th century, it had multiple filling stations, as cars arrived.
Okay, so the footprint's set, more substantial brick buildings are up, but the anchor, the real heart, has always been the courthouse.
Absolutely. The Bradley County Courthouse. It's the literal and symbolic heart of Warren's town square, a testament to governance, community aspirations.
And it wasn't just one building over the years.
No, what's interesting is that this central spot has housed 3 different courthouses, each reflecting its own era.
Tell me about them. We heard about the first temporary one. What came next?
In 1858, they started construction on a more permanent brick courthouse, 2 stories. It was finished around 1861 or 62.
Right as the Civil War was starting.
Exactly. That building served for several decades, saw a lot of change, before being replaced near the end of the 19th century.
So as Warren's fortunes improved with timber, they wanted something grander.
Precisely. Turn of the 20th century, fueled by that lumber money, Bradley County decided to invest. Bigger, more architecturally significant.
And that's the one standing today.
That's the one. The current Bradley County Courthouse, built in 1903, designed by Frank W. Gibb.
A prominent Arkansas architect, right?
Very much so, known for his civic buildings. And deciding to build such a grand structure really speaks volumes about the town's wealth and optimism then.
And it's quite a building to look at. What's the style?
It is monumental. 2-story brick, blending classical and Romanesque revival elements. Styles often chosen for public buildings, to convey permanence, importance.
I think you can picture it. Distinctive features.
It's got this 2-tone brickwork, several towers. The most prominent is that stately, 4-sided clock tower at the southwest corner.
The clock tower, right.
Topped with an elegant bell cupola and a finial, makes it really visible from all around the square. A landmark.
Gibbs' design sounds very deliberate. What are some other key features?
Well, Gibbs' design has a central block, flanked by symmetrical wings. It's balanced by the main clock tower and a slightly shorter tower on the other side. Creates this formal grandeur.
And the entrance.
The main entrance has a welcoming 1-story portico supported by Tuscan columns. Nice classical detail adds to the dignified look. And throughout, you see decorative touches, brick coins at the corners, arched windows on the 2nd story, all very refined.
And this particular courthouse, it's significant in Gibbs' work.
Yes. The 1903 Bradley County Courthouse is seen as an early and particularly ornate example of his classically influenced designs for civic buildings. Really reflects the confidence of a community booming thanks to timber.
The ambition shows.
Definitely. Including a prominent clock tower, such refined details. It symbolized Warren's optimism, its hopes for future growth fueled by lumber.
And it's amazing it's so well preserved and still in use. Speaks volumes.
Absolutely. Remarkably well maintained for over 120 years. Survived without major disasters. Still serves its original function.
Any changes?
Alterations have been sympathetic. There was a compatible 2-story addition added to the rear in 2003, for functionality, but it didn't compromise the historical integrity.
And the grounds themselves. More than just grass, right?
Oh, certainly. The courthouse and its grounds have long been a vital community gathering space. The lawn has monuments, historical markers.
Like what?
There's a 1936 Arkansas Centennial marker commemorating the site of the first courthouse, the early history. Tangible reminders.
And there's another historic building right next door.
Yes, just east of the main courthouse. A charming 1-story brick building built in 1890.
What was it originally?
Housed the county clerk's office. Back then, before big annexes, a fireproof structure like this was crucial for safeguarding records.
And now?
It's been repurposed as a local library, still serving the community, and it visually frames the east side of the square.
So those 2 buildings, the courthouse and the old clerk's office, They really anchor the square historically.
They do. Both are on the National Register of Historic Places, listed back in '76. And they're key elements within the Warren Commercial Historic District, which covers about 20 acres downtown.
Okay, we've got the centerpiece courthouse. What about the other buildings that grew up around the square? How did their look change over time?
Big transformation there. Mid-1800s, mostly simple frame storefronts, functional.
Right.
But as the town prospered, especially after the railroad, those got replaced. More substantial brick commercial blocks came in.
When was that big shift?
Mostly between about 1895 and 1925. If you walked around then, you'd see mostly 1- and 2-story brick buildings, often with decorative cornices, big display windows, late Victorian, early 20th century commercial styles.
Reflecting that growing stability.
Exactly. A sense of permanence, economic strength in Warren.
Can you give us a few specific examples? What kind of businesses were in these new brick buildings?
Sure. Along the west side of Main Street, several notable ones went up around the turn of the century. One of the oldest survivors, 103 N Main, is from about 1905. Housed various things over the years, dry goods, clothing, eventually a print shop.
Okay.
Right next door, 105 Main, 2 stories, built around 1915. That was Ganaway's drugstore for a long time on the ground floor with offices or apartments upstairs.
A common setup.
Very common. Further down at 109 Main, you had Hurley's Hardware, around 1910, catering to the growing town. And mixed in, barber shops, bakeries, other specialty shops.
And the banks, where did they fit in? Usually prime spots.
They definitely picked prime spots near the square, recognized its commercial importance. Merchants and Planters Bank, Warren Bank, both founded around the turn of the century.
Any particular corner become a banking hub.
Yeah, the southwest corner of Main and Cedar, that really emerged as one. Early on, First National Bank had a stately neoclassical building there, 2 stories, and right next to it was the Warren Bank.
And that corner. It saw some changes, too, architecturally.
Yes, it did. In 1927, a fire sadly destroyed the original Warren Bank building.
Oh, no.
But a new, architecturally significant bank was built right on that same prominent site. That's the building now known as the First State Bank building.
What style is that one?
Impressive classical revival style. You see prominent pilasters, a formal pediment, even a carved eagle. Really embodies that 1920s small-town prosperity and pride.
It's a landmark, then.
Definitely. Changed names and owners over the decades, but the building itself remains a key architectural piece on the square.
So the courthouse and this later bank building really stand out. What about the other sides? Cedar Street, Myrtle Street?
Okay, south side, along Cedar Street. One of the most notable structures was the Southern Hotel, originally the Sutherland Hotel.
When was that built?
Around 1910. Southwest corner of Cedar and Myrtle, substantial 3-story brick hotel, quickly became a central social hub travelers, locals.
Big place.
Oh yeah, 75 guest rooms, full restaurant, barbershop, and supposedly the town's very first elevator. Local lore says maybe only one other private one in town at the time. Quite something.
What happened to it?
Sadly, the Southern Hotel, Warren's main hotel for decades, was destroyed by fire in 1964. Left a noticeable gap. It's a parking lot now.
Ah, that's a shame. Has it changed the feel of that corner? What other businesses were on Cedar?
Nearby were some important stores. Calvin's General Store occupied 2 brick storefronts from around 1905. Groceries on one side, dry goods on the other.
A real general store.
Right. By the 1920s, it had evolved into the J.T. Etterington department store, major local retailer.
Okay.
Also on Cedar was Bailey's Drugstore, built around 1910. Later housed the popular sandwich shop cafe, even a doctor's office upstairs.
Multi-use buildings.
Very much so. And next to it was Hankins & Sons Hardware from about 1905. Stocked everything, farm implements, household goods, even had a 5 and dime section in the 20s. Shows the variety right there on the square.
So by the mid-20th century, the square was really a one-stop shop for the community. Totally self-sufficient.
Exactly. By then, Warren's town square had it all. Multiple drugstores, doctor's offices, at least 2 big hardware and farm implement dealers, clothing shops like Glasgow's and Bott's on Main, cafes, bakeries, furniture, appliances, professional offices, everything clustered conveniently around the courthouse. Undeniably the heart of the town's economy.
It's clear as the commercial heart, but is also the center of social and civic life, right?
Absolutely. From Warren's earliest days, the town square was the primary gathering place. And following that common tradition in Arkansas courthouse towns, it also functioned as the central public forum.
So political rallies, speeches.
Oh, yes. Candidates regularly held speeches right on the courthouse steps, drew residents from all over the county, especially on court days or election eves.
A place to hear the latest news, engage in debate.
Yes, definitely. In the 19th century, important news election results, Civil War updates would be posted or proclaimed right there at the square, the information hub.
And during Reconstruction.
Its role as a seat of authority was underlined then. Union troops were stationed in Warren, likely used the courthouse area as headquarters.
And that tradition of the square as the community focal point,
Mm-hmm.
it carried right on into the 20th century.
It certainly did. Remained central for public celebrations,
Yeah.
civic pride displays. Parades became a regular thing.
What kind of parades?
Annual Warren High School homecoming parades, big 4th of July celebrations, Veterans Day processions. They all went around the square, used its open space, the courthouse steps, as a natural reviewing stand.
And wartime gatherings.
Yes, we even have these poignant photos from World War I and II. The community gathered downtown for send-offs, and the joyous homecomings for local soldiers.
The courthouse grounds themselves played a role in wartime efforts, too.
They did.
Mm-hmm.
During World War II, the grounds often hosted vital war bond rallies. People gathered to hear speeches, buy bonds. Sometimes military vehicles were displayed right there to rally support.
And then there's the really enduring tradition, the one Warren is famous for.
Ah, yes. The Bradley County Pink Tomato Festival, a beloved annual event since the 1950s.
The pink tomato capital of the world.
That's the title. And every June, thousands of people descend on Warren for the festival. Events are heavily concentrated right in and around the town square.
Sounds like quite the party.
It truly is. Lively parade, fun tomato eating contests, live music, a bustling street fair. It basically takes over the square and adjacent streets.
How long has it been going?
It's one of the oldest continuous festivals in Arkansas. Dates back to around 1956, deeply ingrained in the local identity.
So the square just comes alive then?
Absolutely. Normally quiet streets filled with vendors, huge crowds, locals, visitors, even political candidates show up, shake hands, maybe join the parade. Still a political stage.
But it's used for other things too, not just the festival.
Oh, yes. Community remembrance, civic observances, memorial services, Veterans Day, National Day of Prayer often held on the courthouse lawn. And Christmas on the square brings festive decorations, gatherings, keeps that community spirit alive.
And in tougher times,
Mm.
crises.
Yes, unfortunately, Warren's faced disasters, devastating tornadoes in 1949 and 1975.
And the square's role then?
In those difficult times, it served as a vital central coordination point for relief efforts, a space for the community to come together, grieve, support each other. That open layout, it just naturally facilitates gathering in celebration and in tragedy.
It's fascinating how the square's activity level mirrors Warren's economic fortunes. Let's dig into the timber industry first. That was huge.
Undeniably the driving force, late 19th, early 20th centuries, and the town square was its absolutely vital commercial and service center.
It's kicked off by the railroad.
Exactly. That 1880 arrival was the catalyst, spurred huge investment in large-scale sawmills nearby. Local money, outside money.
And those mills, they changed everything.
Transformative impact. Mills like Bradley Lumber, Southern Lumber employed hundreds. Warren's population exploded, and businesses around the square thrived, meeting the needs of all these new people.
Must have been buzzing.
Oh, yeah. The 1920s, 30s peak lumber years, Warren Square was reportedly bustling 6 days a week.
A real hive of activity.
Absolutely. Loggers, mill workers, they'd come to town, especially Saturdays after payday, do their banking right there on the square, buy supplies, relax, socialize.
And the banks played a key role.
Critical role. Provided financing for the lumber operations. Merchants sold everything workers needed: boots, tools, household goods for families.
Which banks were prominent then?
Merchants and Planters Bank started in the 1890s, and Warren Bank, founded 1901. Both grew significantly during the timber boom, still among the town's oldest businesses.
And even that impressive 1903 courthouse, connected to the Timberwolf.
Directly enabled by it, yeah. Entrepreneurs, many from the Midwest, came to capitalize on the pine forests, brought significant new capital to Bradley County, made such an ambitious civic project feasible.
The railroad's location, right near the square, must have been crucial too.
Absolutely crucial. Tracks ran just a block north, vital link.
Hmm.
By 1912, the area between First Street and the tracks was full of big grocery and furniture warehouses.
Serving the lumber trade.
Yeah, companies like Saline Grocer, Turner Jones, Wholesale Grocery, supplying local stores, lumber camps. Very efficient.
And the trains themselves.
Carried vast quantities of lumber out to national markets and brought all sorts of goods in, offloaded right near the square's northern edge. Solidified the square's role as a regional distribution hub.
And even when timber started to decline a bit, the square adapted.
They did. After WWWI, as the big forests were logged out and mills slowed down, timber was still important, just maybe not the explosive growth phase. Potlatch Corporation took over Southern Lumber in the 50s.
So the banks and stores adjusted?
Yeah, the established banks, supply stores, they adapted to a steadier wood products economy. Still key players.
Then, mid-20th century, another big industry emerges. Tomatoes.
That's right. Mid-20th century, tomato agriculture becomes Bradley County's other signature industry. And the town square, again, adapts to the seasonal rhythms of this new economic engine.
What made the area good for tomatoes?
The soil. The county's unique sandy loam soil proved exceptionally well-suited for cultivating these renowned South Arkansas vine-ripe pink tomatoes. Got a reputation for amazing flavor.
And the annual harvest must have brought a totally different energy.
Oh, absolutely. Every summer, peak harvest May, June, downtown Warren would be buzzing. Farm trucks loaded with tomatoes, agricultural workers coming in.
Where did the tomatoes go?
Growers brought them into town, sold to brokers, or loaded onto rail cars for shipment across the country. Longtime residents remember Campbell's Soup being a huge buyer back in the 50s, trucks constantly coming and going.
How did the square's businesses cater to this?
They definitely benefited. Cafes opened early for pickers, hardware stores stocked crates and tools, banks offered credit to growers waiting for payment.
Sounds lively.
It was. Height of the season, the square had a real carnival feel. Mountains of tomatoes piled on sidewalks for weighing, kids having playful tomato fights sometimes. A real scene.
And this tomato boom directly led to that iconic festival.
Exactly. Recognizing the economic and cultural importance, the town launched the Bradley County Pink Tomato Festival. Draws huge crowds every year, as we said.
And the square is ground zero for that.
Totally. Festival week, the whole region's economic and social life centers on Warren Square. Streets closed, lined with vendors. You even see that giant painted tomato on the bricks at a key intersection.
A real symbol.
The courthouse lawn becomes a picnic area for tomato luncheons, showcasing all the ways to use them.
Clearly a huge point of pride.
It is indeed. So much so that in 1987, the Arkansas General Assembly made the pink tomato the official state fruit. Really underscores how tied together the crop and Warren's identity are.
And it still matters today.
Yeah, even with changes in farming, lots of locals still get seasonal work in tomato packing and shipping. And the square remains the venue for the farmers market and the annual festival, linking the modern economy right back to those agricultural roots.
You mentioned the preserved brick streets earlier. They tie into this too.
They do. Those red brick streets downtown, many paved around 1927 during a good period. They add historical charm, sure, but they often have those painted pink tomato motifs. Reinforces that identity.
Beyond timber and tomatoes, the square also reflects other developments, like basic infrastructure.
Absolutely. As the county seat, Warren got essential public utilities relatively early. By the 1920s, the local light and water company had offices just off the square on Cedar. Shows these services growing.
And city government buildings.
Right. The city's municipal building, constructed in 1931 on the east side, 104 N Myrtle, brought together City Hall, police, fire stations, even the Chamber of Commerce. Impressive Art Deco style, distinctive concrete ornaments, a sign of progress.
And the rise of the car, that left its mark too.
Oh, yes. More cars meant gas stations popping up on the square's periphery. Mid-20th century, Main and Church intersection was packed with them.
Big brands.
Yeah, Lion Oil, Esso, Mobile, almost every corner. Serving locals, but also travelers on Highway 63, which was a major route then.
Are they still there?
Most of those old service stations are gone now. Demolished or repurposed, but their presence back then shows the square adapting to the automobile age.
This has been a really rich look at the commercial and civic life, but there's a more complex layer, difficult sometimes, regarding racial segregation.
Yes, that's a crucial part of the story. During the Jim Crow era, late 19th through mid-20th century, the social landscape of Warren Square was sharply divided. Racially divided.
How so?
African Americans were a significant part of Bradley County's population, but they faced severe restrictions. Limited access, limited participation in the public space of the square. It was white-dominated due to entrenched customs, discriminatory laws.
Sounds like a time of strict control, inequality.
It was, marked by violent enforcement of white supremacy, especially late 1800s. Warren sadly had documented lynchings of black men between 1887 and 1903.
Horrific.
Acts of racial terror instilled fear, underscored exclusion from public life. As segregation hardened, black residents were expected to use separate facilities, couldn't freely mingle on the square except in subservient roles, often.
Even public buildings.
Yes. The train depot near the square, built in 1907, had explicit white and colored waiting rooms. Segregation was everywhere.
And this extended to businesses around the square.
Accounts from oral histories suggest.
Yeah.
Yes, black customers often had to use back entrances at white-owned businesses on the square, or relegated to segregated seating like the balcony at the movie theater.
So the black community developed alternatives.
Exactly. In response, mirroring many southern towns, Warren's African-American community developed its own parallel business district, separate from the main square.
Tell us about that area. Catfish Row, was it?
That's right, a specific block of East Elm Street, just north of the railroad tracks but still pretty close to the courthouse, became the vibrant heart of black commerce and community life, known historically as Catfish Row.
What was there?
By 1907, it already had black-owned eateries, barbershops, a boarding house, essential services.
And it grew.
Oh, it flourished. Over the next couple of decades, it became a major hub. By 1920, a bottling works, confectionery, pool hall, dry cleaner, cobbler, barber, grocery, all black-owned.
Wow.
By 1931, the whole block had 1- and 2-story brick buildings, multiple restaurants, a movie theater specifically for the black community, a Dr. Pepper bottling plant, even a lodge hall for fraternal organizations.
So it was basically a self-contained downtown for black residents.
Precisely. Catfish Row was the de facto downtown for Warren's African-American community, offered alternatives to the discrimination on the main square.
A safe space, a community space.
Right. Enjoy entertainment at the black-operated theater without segregated seating. Fraternal orders met in the lodge hall. Hammond's Funeral Home, a prominent black business, was their founder's initials still visible on the building that's left.
The contrast must have been stark.
Especially on weekends, Catfish Row bustling with black customers, while the courthouse square just a block south was primarily white residents. That physical separation, just a block in the tracks, illustrates the two worlds of segregated Warren.
But there had to be some interaction on the main square, out of necessity.
Yes, some limited presence. Black citizens had to go to the courthouse, pay taxes, official business, might shop occasionally at the few white stores that served them, but often segregated service back doors, separate counters.
And during big events, like the Tomato Festival.
Black residents might gather around the edges of the main crowd, often self-segregated. Black school bands participated in parades, for instance, but the spectators lining the streets likely remained largely divided.
The civil rights movement in the 60s. That eventually brought change.
Gradual but transformative changes, yes. Warren's schools desegregated relatively peacefully by the late 60s, following Brown v. Board. Warren was fortunate to avoid the intense conflicts seen elsewhere.
And on the square.
As legal segregation ended, black residents gained the legal right to patronize any business, participate more fully in public life. But over time, Catfish Row declined.
Why was that?
Urban renewal initiatives, broader economic shifts, many original buildings were demolished. Today, only one single-story brick structure remains as a reminder.
And the businesses.
Many closed or relocated after integration, moved closer to the main commercial streets, seeking opportunities in the newly desegregated environment.
So the legal segregation is gone, but the historical legacy, it lingers.
Fading with time, but it's a significant part of Warren's history. You still see historically black churches near the square, New Zion, AME Zion, St. James AME, pillars of the community, testaments to those parallel structures.
And the square itself today.
The courthouse lawn, once almost exclusively white public space, now much more inclusive, used freely by everyone. Today, during the Tomato Festival, you might see black and white kids playing together on the grass.
An image unimaginable back then.
Virtually unimaginable in the Jim Crow era. So the square transformed from a microcosm of a divided society into a more integrated civic space, even as the town remembers that complex history.
Looking out from the center of the square today, it sounds like you can really see these layers of history everywhere.
Absolutely. Stand in the middle, look around, tangible reminders, echoes everywhere, church steeples in the distance.
We mentioned those earlier.
Right. First United Methodist west on Church Street, First Baptist south on Main. They gave Church Street its name.
What else stands out? Other landmarks?
Look north, you see the old Warren Water Tower, mid-20th century, a town name painted on it. Familiar skyline element?
Closer in?
Historic markers, plaques. That 1936 centennial marker on the lawn commemorating the first courthouse site, a veterans memorial nearby, and the streets themselves. Those historic red bricks, paved around 1927, many still there, often with the tomato emblems.
Any notable older buildings just off the square?
Yes, a couple blocks south, Main and Central, is the Edderington House. Beautiful 1926 Tudor Revival home on the National Register, reflects the prosperity of that era.
East?
East. Down Myrtle, the Donald W. Reynolds YMCA, started 1948, an early rural Y in Arkansas. Further on, the high school campus, historically close by. North, near the tracks, the site of the old Warren and Wachita Valley Railroad Depot.
The depot's gone.
Buildings are gone, yes. Built 1909, rebuilt 1911 after a fire, but the rail line still crosses Main Street, a reminder of that lumber shipping role.
Even the street names themselves offer clues, you said.
They certainly do. Main Street, always the main one. Myrtle Street, east. Likely named for myrtle trees, part of maybe a floral tree name pattern there.
Interesting.
Early maps show a Chestnut Street north of the square area, hinting at that tree name pattern for east-west streets. Pennington Street, north of the tracks near the depot site, likely echoes Pennington Settlement, an early name for the area.
And Splawn, the landowner.
Amazingly, a 1907 Sanborn fire map labels an area north of the square Splawn-Aden. Directly recalls John Splawn, one of the original donors. History right there in the names.
So walking around the square is really like walking through Warren's history.
Exactly. Like reading a map of its development, each direction tells a story. Churches on Church Street, the ghost of Catfish Row on Elm, the courthouse dome, the bricks underfoot.
An intersection of history and place.
That's it. It's physical development, simple clearing to paved plaza with big buildings, mirrors Warren's journey, pioneer days, timber booms, tomatoes, wars, social change, civic life.
Governance, commerce, community soul, all housed there.
Right, you can stand there and almost picture it. 19th century market day, 1930s Model Ts political talk, 1960s tomato festival crowds, a quiet afternoon today with the clock ticking.
All those moments live on.
In the square's spatial memory, it's truly the enduring heart of WarrenArkansas.
Wow. This deep dive into Warren's Town Square has been genuinely fascinating. We've seen how this central space hasn't just witnessed, but actively reflected the huge transformations the community went through.
Adapting to new economies, navigating social changes,
Yeah.
always serving as that focal point for community life.
Yeah, and it really underscores how a seemingly simple thing, a town square, can hold such profound stories about a community's past.
Deeply inform its present character.
And maybe even offer glimpses into its future.
Absolutely.
It certainly makes you think about the central gathering spaces in your own community. What stories do the buildings, the landmarks of your town square silently tell? Definitely something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.